Hey guys, so I'm tearing apart this S54 even more. Figured I should go ahead and make another video. Unfortunately, I've already done a lot of the work. But what we have here now is that what was supposed to be just a simple rod, bearings, and Vanos job, that's what I wanted to do to keep this budget, turned into one of those scope creep things where, oh, you already have it on the engine stand, you might as well go ahead and do this, this, and that. When's the next time you'll have it on the engine stand type of thing? And you don't want to agree to that, but that's the way it ended up working. You know, you kind of talk yourself into it through sleepless nights. So, what we have here is, I've already got the front timing case off. Let's see, I'll bring you along here. I have the front timing case off and the timing chain off already. And everything is loosened, ready to go. Cams are out. There's everything right there. Cams are out, labeled. I try to keep everything in order. I never actually checked the valve clearance for the valve job. So even though I will be doing the valve job in the future, I at least need to have my baseline set, so I didn't want to get my shims mixed up. So I have them pulled out and labeled so that when I put everything back together, I can put the shims back in, check the clearance, and see if they're okay or if I need to go with a different thickness shim in my shim kit. And then of course I got the valve cover here. And we got the cams out, and the cams was a little, I wish I had gotten a video of that, I'm sorry guys. It was a little fun. I found another video where a guy was doing this and he showed the steps on how to do it. And as long as you have the engine at top dead center, like you're doing a Vanos job, on the intake side, cylinder 3 is compressed, and on the exhaust side, cylinder 2 is compressed, valve-wise. So that meant that all I had to do was just remove all the cam caps except 2 for exhaust and 3 on intake. And then on those, I just loosened up the 2 nuts right here evenly, a quarter of a turn, 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 back and forth until it came off. Same thing on this one, on number 2. And it was a little scary because the last couple threads you heard the cam jump a little bit because the valve springs popped up a little bit. So, but nothing got damaged, everything was good, no cracked cams or anything like that, so very thankful. And so we're gonna come over here and I'm gonna see if I can get a video of me go ahead and pulling this head off and checking the head gasket. So let me change a few things, I'll be right back. So normally you would have the timing chain in here, and if you're in a car it's a little bit more complicated because you gotta have someone to hold the chain up because you don't have access to the pan. But here I have access to everything, so it doesn't even matter if the chain falls or comes out or anything like that. But the chain has to be kept with tension on it, otherwise if it falls down here, it doesn't allow the chain guides to spread or come close so that you can get the head off. I went ahead and took the chain off already, so that now these chain guides can compress like this and I can get the head off. Let me see here. And I've already loosened all of the head bolts already. I went in order from outside to inside, whereas if you're installing it, you go from inside to outside. thing weighs about 30 pounds, so it's got some weight to it. All right, so let's take a look. So here we have our head gasket, and the car had never had any issues before overheating that I saw, but when I got the M3 convertible, knowing that I was going to be parting it out, I never actually drove it that far. I just drove it on and off the trailer, let it idle more than a few times to full temp, and never had any issues. But I never drove it like you're supposed to. And it looks like here, I don't know if you can see it, cylinder 1, broken, the head gasket here, so it wouldn't necessarily show an overheating issue, but it definitely would be a performance issue with lost power, probably some detonation that you wouldn't even hear under high RPM full load, but definitely is an issue, and I'm glad I pulled the head off so that I can see that. There have been reports of other people that have never had any issues, and they pulled the head off and they had 3 or 4 of these broken in half or showing cracks and breaking. This one appears to be okay. This one appears to be okay. This one seems to be okay. And this one appears to be okay. So I only had one that was damaged. We're going to pull this off. Off of here. So I have some work cut out for me. I'll definitely do some work cleaning up this surface nice and clean, cleaning off the tops of the pistons, and see if I can get this block cleaned up with some oven cleaner, scrub it and repaint it nice and black, cover everything. Still need to replace this rear main seal plate right here. Got to clean this up. A lot of rust on the iron block, so I want to get all that coated and painted so it looks nice like this. And then later today, I'm going to go ahead and get this dropped off at a local machine shop and have them check the deck clearance, make sure it's straight, and if it's not, do what they need to do to take some off. And I've already given them the most they can go according to the BMW TIS, which I think is 0.3 millimeters. And after speaking with them, they said that they usually go in smaller increments than that. They gave me the number, I just can't remember. But they're aware of how far they can go before they'll cause an issue. So if you go past 0.3 millimeter taking off material from the machine, from the cylinder head, then you run the risk of valve to piston clearance, because these engines are 11.51 compression from the factory. So they're pretty high compression. They have tight piston to valve clearance already, so you don't want to make the cylinder head, you don't want to take too much off to risk that. And that's why BMW gives you the maximum amount you can go, but they actually recommend not to go any, if at all possible. And this engine's never been overheated, so it probably won't need to have much taken off anyways. But there we go. And when I get things back from the machine shop, we'll have everything ready to go. So we'll do one of those cool YouTube things where they go like this. So looks like we're back from the machine shop. That was pretty fast, and they did an awesome job. It looks great, super clean. Will's Machine Shop in Chamblee, Georgia, and the prices were great. Real down-to-earth guys. They love to chit-chat, which is nice. Told them the specifications that I wanted for decking the head. They didn't even come anywhere close to that. They did 4/1000ths of an inch, which is barely anything. Not even close to the 0.3 millimeters that BMW said you couldn't go past. But man, and they didn't hot tank it either, because when you get a head hot tanked, you need to deliver a completely bare head. And I still have valve train components in here, the rocker arms, the shafts, the valve stems, and everything, including the springs. So with that said, they couldn't really hot tank it, but it's pretty darn good. And you look in here, this was very varnished with oil, and it looks great. They cleaned up the ports on everything, which is really cool. They cleaned up the ports, which is really nice. Let's see if I can get a light on there. Yeah, it's still hard to see, but let's see if we can see in there. Very clean. Yeah, you can see that looks good. Look at that. That's very cool. And then here, all this stuff was, you just couldn't even see it. It was just caked with nothing but everything. So I'm very happy to use this. The only problem is now I have all this, which is oil varnish, so I need to do a little elbow grease and clean up as much as I can. I definitely want to clean this up. Definitely want to clean the cam caps up and the rocker arm brackets. Cams I may just leave alone because I don't like risking touching anything or getting anything near the cam journals and lobes, and don't really care much for that. But this stuff will look pretty good once I clean it up, and the valve cover definitely needs to get cleaned up on the inside. So let's see here where we are now. We're back to this engine here. Tonight I'm going to work on getting this oil pump assembly off, getting that chain off, because I have all new parts coming in from FCP Euro. I ordered all new guides, new oil pump guide, oil pump chain guide, and bolts and seals. I need to clean everything up. It's still pretty gross. I got a lot of cleaning up on this block to do, but once I get this oil pump off, then I can start pulling these rod bearings just to check them out and see. And I do have a new set of bearings here, ACL bearings. I've run these before. I run genuine bearings in my red M3 sedan, the turbocharged one, because I got them like 6 years ago and they have about 20,000 miles on them. But here, a buddy of mine had these laying around and he got them, and there is a local machine guy we use for other work, and he builds engines, and he also coated these, which is pretty cool. So we have some bearings here. They got a coating on them. These are the ACL standard size race bearings, and these are not identified with upper or lower like the BMW bearings or King bearings or BE bearings. So with that said, most people can just slap these in, no problem, and as long as your crank journals are good, no excessive wear, then you shouldn't have any problems just throwing these in. But in my case, since I have some time, I'm not really in a rush, I'm going to plastic gauge, which is basically, I'm going to install and torque all of the rod bearings one by one. And when I do that, I'm going to measure the bearing clearance, and let me see this, 0.001 to 0.003. All right, I'll see which one. I got two different styles here, so one of them will work. Yeah, oh, here we go. 0.25 to 0.076. That's the range that we're gonna use most likely, because it's gonna fall within that range. I think BMW is 0.30 to 0.70 in that range, with 0.4 being kind of somewhere in the middle of the road that you want to be in. But I'm looking forward to that because it'll just give me some peace of mind measuring the bearing clearances one by one, and I'll feel a lot better knowing that I didn't just slap the bearings in, and that I'll know the clearances, I'll have them documented, and yeah, so that's good. And I don't have any expensive digital torque wrenches or anything like that, so we're gonna use the old school torque angle adapter. And once we start installing these, basically you have to install the rod bolts. When you do a plastic gauge, you install the bearings and you torque everything as if you're installing it like you're supposed to. So you follow the complete torque sequence. Well, this engine is the older style M11 bolts, so the cool thing about this is I can reuse these bolts as many times as I want, as long as I make sure that each bolt stays with this rod cap on its side. So when you take these off, this rod bolt needs to stay with this rod cap and it needs to stay on this side because everything's balanced on these engines. The newer engines have the M10 bolts, and with those bolts, they are torque to yield stretch bolts, which means once they're stretched, you need to replace them. So if you're going to plastic gauge on the newer motor to check bearing clearances, technically you're supposed to install the rod bolts, check your clearances, run the whole stretch sequence, and then once you check your clearances, and if they're all good, then you would throw those bolts away and use brand new bolts. I'm pretty sure some guys out there just reuse the old rod bolts just for checking bearing clearances. But yeah, in my case, I don't need to worry about that. So I'm going to do some more work, try to get all this off, and we'll be back. Okay. Wanted to take some time to show what I'm working on now before I get into the oil pump stuff. This is, trying to clean all the varnish off of the cam caps and the front camshaft plate on oil distribution area. Lots of varnish here, so I definitely want to clean this up. And I looked online, a lot of people get ultrasonic cleaners and stuff like that. I wanted to start cheap, so I got some WD-40, and the WD-40 I'm spraying right here over my little work area, and I'm using just a bristle brush, making sure I do not touch the journal area, okay? Stay away from that. But everything else is fair game to clean. So that's pretty much what I'm working on now. And as you can see, I got a little pool here. But it comes off pretty easily. You can see I already took some off right there. It's a slow process, but I'm not in any rush. So you can see it comes off pretty good. Once you get in all to the nooks and crannies, you spray it, clean it, wipe it off, use some brake cleaner to clean everything up, and I'll show you the finished results when I'm done. Okay, so we did a little bit of cleaning. That was probably about 10 minutes worth of scrubbing and cleaning with WD-40 and brake cleaner. It's not perfect. Again, this is just something that's going to be under the valve cover, obviously, so you'll hardly ever see it. No one else will see it. But it does feel nice to have it a little bit cleaner, matching the cylinder head instead of that brown varnish look. So that's pretty good. Cleaned the bearing surfaces, and then before installation, obviously, I'll run through brake cleaner through all of the oil passages one last time to make sure there's no gunk in them. Clean the journals one good time with a microfiber cloth and brake cleaner, and then of course during installation of the cams and everything, you'll use assembly lube so everything's nice and lubricated properly. So, but and then we have new seals all around that I've ordered. They're coming in from FCP, so things like this. Never even knew that was there. I had to order that when I pulled it apart. Alright, so let's get started. Hopefully I can show you all of them done when we're finished. Okay, so we're back, and I've done a lot of cleaning. Gone through 3 or 4 bottles of brake cleaner, engine degreaser, WD-40, a lot of scrubbing, and so anyways, let's just show the parts. So we showed this before. This is much cleaner, and I've done all the cam caps. They're much cleaner than before, and they will definitely match and look nicer in the cylinder head than the ugly brown that's still on the cams. went ahead and soaked the nuts and cleaned off the bolt heads. Even went and did the timing case cover. So also removed the front crank seal because I have a new one coming in. I'll get that pressed in. Still need to figure out where I can get the tool to set the proper depth of that. But this looks pretty good. Clean the back side of it too, even though nobody will see it, but it feels good to get all that nasty oil buildup sludge out of there. Most of it at least. So I think that'll look a lot better and a lot cleaner when everything is assembled. And then finally what we'll do is we'll come back and I'll set my camera up so that we can go ahead and remove that oil pump. So let me go ahead and set the camera up. I will be right back.